I want to hear a little bit more about you because if I'm being honest, it's the first time we actually sat down and talked. I know we've seen each other on Instagram. We've crossed paths.
Yep.
Saw you at church one day, and I know you've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've been excited about it. So let's just tell the audience a little bit about like who you are and even maybe the journey of coming across legacy and myself and what drew you into that, because I'm always intrigued of what am I doing that's causing people to want to be, in the same room, because oftentimes we think we know what's drawing you in, but maybe it's something that I don't know. Like maybe I did something or I posted something that really resonated with you, and then that can help me to say, oh, people are actually paying attention. Because I think in the Instagram world, and I don't know if you feel about this, sometimes we feel like we're talking to ourselves. Like sometimes we feel like no one's listening. Sometimes we feel like, is this really making a difference? And then that occasional DM from Justin or, reaching out and saying like, man, I want to, I want more.
Yeah.
And that's encouraging. It's also, sometimes it can be like, whoa, like, I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be doing, So I just, again, let me shut up and let you talk, but tell us a little bit about yourself and then how we ended up in this room is kind of like what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I love it. So for me, like at 12 years old, I grew up in a very spiritual home. My parents are actually here right now. They flew down, born and raised in Canada, up in North Canada, man. Like
what part?
Edmonton.
Okay.
So Northwest, you can hit a golf ball if you're really good to Alaska. And
so let me ask you a question, because I have a lot of Canadian, I wouldn't say necessarily friends, but connections.
Yeah.
So my marketing team is from Canada. They're called Foes. And I've yet to meet a not nice Canadian. Like, what is it about Canadian? Y'all are all so nice. Like, what is that?
I think it comes down to, honestly, if you're not nice to somebody, they're going to leave you out in the cold and you're just going to die.
Okay, all right. It's a victim of your atmosphere, to your surroundings.
Victim of your environment.
Yeah, environment.
But no, so I grew up in a very spiritual home that like I just really knew who I was. And I had a dream one night, and God speaks to me on a very regular basis, very connected. Yeah. And he said, you are going to redeem the health of the world. And that was just like in my mind. And then the next day I was a hockey player, grew up playing hockey, and my dad was driving me back. I had 2 or 3 week stretch of like not playing well. It was 12-year-old playing with 14, 15, 16-year-olds.
Okay.
And I was like just down on myself. And he said, son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid, and your payment will come in the form of spiritual freedom. And it just changed my entire life. It changed the way I thought. And when he said that, immediately I was like, okay, what can I control and be the most consistent version of? And it was this human experience that we have. It was your mind, it was your body, it was your heart, it was your spirit.
Right.
And the consistent habits, the consistent engagements that we went to is what I almost ultimately dove deeply into. And it ultimately changed the trajectory of my life. Came down to the US on a hockey scholarship at age 18. Did my undergraduate degree in nutrition and exercise science, did my master's degree in those same 2 areas, and then did my postgraduate research in heart rate variability and sleep. Wow. From there, I had a 15-year career as a performance director in the NHL, and coming to year 13, I heard loud and clear from God. He's like, hey, thanks for doing a great job serving the people you want to. It's now time to serve my people. And it's helping people understand that the way that the world has told them health is, what the things that they have been telling them are healthy, may actually be hurting them. And not the ways of the world, but rather the way that your body was created, the way your body was designed. Let's figure out what's happening internally so that we can ultimately get you a better external reality and create that level of alignment of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and bring it all together so that we can now truly realize and prepare ourselves for what God's already prepared for us.
That's amazing. I love that. And what's the name of your company?
Yeah, so our company is called Own It.
Own It.
Yeah,
I love that.
And I think like going back to like what drew us together and like from this space is first off, coming to Miami, I moved to Miami about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
My wife and I were doing long distance between New York City and Anaheim when I was still in the league. In 2020, I left. I went to New York City. We did split time between Naples and New York
Naples.
City.
My brother lived in Naples some too, yeah.
And obviously Naples a little bit quieter, a little bit more slow going.
Yeah, exactly.
And my wife, who's like a New York City girl, like she's like loves the hustle and bustle. It's like, I need the heat. Like I need to be in like somewhere warm.
Yeah.
Coming from Canada, I'm like, I can't go back. I can't do winter. And she's like, but I need the city. Like I need to go.
Right.
And so Miami was a good
I was about to say,
compromise.
no perfect place in that. That's a match made in heaven right there.
So coming here, it was like, you know what it's like trying to find your community, your people. And there's so many businesses out there when you get into the entrepreneurial world where it's just like there's no faith to it. There's no mission to it. There's no bigger purpose. It's just, hey, how can I churn out the most amount of money possible and create a business that I can be looked after and go from there. And so coming here, I was like trying to find my people,
right.
my community, like people that were on mission, on purpose, dialed into it, but yet in service of other people and in service of something that was greater than them. And got connected with Vu real fast. John Gordon, good friend of mine. He said, hey, when you go to Miami, like you got to check out Vu. Him and Rich are obviously really well connected. And so went down there and started to get plugged in. And then as I was on Instagram, was hanging out with Rich, and I'd seen a post that he had, and it said, no days off in the background. I was like, no days off. What's that all about? And so I started to look into it. And I to be honest with you, I didn't know, this is the story. I screenshotted the photo.
Yeah.
And I was like, what gym is this? I got to figure this out. Like, I want to work out there.
Yeah.
And so I started typing into Google, no days off Miami. Nothing was really coming up. I was looking into it, and it said, leave it all on the turf. And I was like, leave it all on the turf, white light, pit bull. Like I was just throwing like keywords into Google. And then as I all of a sudden came down, I had a bunch of random stuff, and then like legacy. And so I was like, clicked on it. This is it. Okay. Who started this? And that's how it all navigated.
Really cool. That's really
and that
cool.
was the story and where it came. And then I
think that's a lesson though, honestly, like hearing you say it, there was a lot of intentionality to it.
Totally.
You know, like you sought after it.
Oh, big time.
And I am encouraged to hear that, but I think other people need to realize, like, if you want to be a part of something, you can't just sit around and wait on
Pursue it.
Like, pursue it. Go after it. Don't just think that people are just going to come to you. No, go to them.
Yeah.
And you did that. And I applaud that, because most people don't. And then the fact that you like kind of investigated and you know, I'm one of those people that I love to go down rabbit holes and investigate, and so I think that's phenomenal. And I think it's a lesson for people to understand. If you really want to be a part of something, if you want to elevate, then you have to pursue it and surround yourself with people that are like-minded in that. And so the intentionality of it just speaks to me. Definitely. So
I love it. It's also, you have to get in the room. Like you have to get in the room and you have to create that proximity. I mean, to be honest, for all your listeners and people viewing, this was the first time that we've sat in the same room together and had like an in-depth conversation. We've seen each other in passing. We happen to go to the same church. Again, like divine intervention of like how that all works.
Right.
But I've been hanging with your brother 4 or 5 days a week for the last year, because again, I wanted to get closer, wanted to get into the room. Legacy was right. It's about 5 blocks from my house in Coral Gables. And so just organically making something happen, knowing that you put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the effort, your reasoning is there to create relationship. If it's all about relationship, time doesn't matter.
100%. Yep.
If it's about relationship, time doesn't matter. It's going to happen because you're just preparing yourself for what's already been prepared for you. And when there's an ulterior motive, you can spell it out right away.
Oh, yeah.
You won't have the staying power.
Right.
You won't have the sustainability. You won't be able to wait a year, 2 years, 5 years for what's going to be really great if it's not for the right purpose and on mission.
And I think to that point, so I get DMs and emails all the time. I get people even in the gym that come up to me like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I always say like, hit me up. And then I purposely make them hit me up more than once. And the reason why, it's not that I'm better than them or that I'm too busy or anything like that, but I do it on purpose to see if they're really serious. Like, are you really going after this? Are you just trying to, use me or use our community or whatever? Like, but are you really trying to accomplish something? And are you showing me that, that you want it? And so to go back to you, like, you're consistent. You dove into the community. Like you said, you're going 5-6 days a week to Coral Gables and taking my brother's class and, just being in the community. And I think I texted you one day or DM'd you that's how you get started, right? You put yourself in those positions and then you build relationships and then it's authentic and then it's real. So I think that's why you're in the room today and it's cool to have that conversation. Based off of like where you are now and your calling, and now that you're like a little bit more, I would say, is this more like now you're trying to seek after like faith-based people to help them with their health, or is it just everyone in the world? Like,
yeah, it's everyone.
Yeah.
Our business has been like, it's just been a real blessing to see the anointing that's been upon it.
Yeah.
We're working with about 300 professional athletes. I just got back from spring training, was with the Detroit Tigers, Boston Red Sox, Philadelphia Phillies, Detroit Tigers, working with their entire teams top down, with the Tampa Bay Lightning. We've got about 14 teams in their entirety that we work with.
Okay.
We've got about 47 major Division I organizations that we work with through their entire athletic department. Then we've got a corporate entity servicing corporations from like a new age health and wellness component. Like, really, how are you servicing the individual? How are you looking after them? Not just giving them a gym membership or not just giving them like a class pass, or like, how do you really look after them as a whole being, like their entire human experience? Because if we're only looking at 25% being the physical of health, we're missing 75% mental, spiritual, and emotional. And nothing's curated for them. Nothing's curated for the individual. Nothing's curated for the lifestyle of what they have. Because Peter, who is an executive and has a wife and 5 kids, is very different from Stephanie, who's a single mom of 3. And they both need something different. One's a male, one's a female. One has a very different lifestyle than the other, compared to Tony, who's a single man. Like, very, very different across the 3. But
I love that you said that too, because I think a lot of coaches like yourself, and obviously you're showing that you're different, is that there's a one size fits all for everybody. And like, take these supplements, eat this food, do this workout, and you will look like me. Like, and that's why I've never been a big fan of just giving out advice, right? Because it has to be specific to the individual. Totally. Tell me a little bit about your processes of like, okay, let's say that you come on board with the Detroit Tigers. Like, what's that process look like? Like, how do you start? Is it lab testing? Like, go in a little bit of your processes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the entire human being.
Okay.
Right. I need to make sure and understand what is this person made up of. HRV is our core metric that we're pulling from a biometric standpoint. Heart rate variability is what HRV stands for. And it is the universal understanding of how our body's adapting to stress and strain. Our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress. The body's response to stress is to create inflammation within the body. Chronic inflammation causes chronic symptoms. Chronic symptoms that the world tells us are normal. Fatigue, insomnia, headaches, bloating, anxiety. They're what the world.
Isn't it crazy too that has become like it's the norm? Like, that's just my life. Like, people think that they have to live that way. Yeah. Like, it's sad, but that's the truth.
And they're told this is what it takes to be a 8-figure entrepreneur. This is what it takes to be an executive. This is what it takes to be a mom. This is what it takes to be a dad. This is what it takes to be a spouse. But it's not true.
Right.
And so we come back to that HRV metric because HRV is that metric that helps us understand that. So stress creates inflammation. Inflammation creates chronic symptoms. Chronic symptoms that we ignore create chronic illness, and chronic illness is killing 71% of Americans. It's wild.
Yep.
And so when we take a look back at this, I say we earn our diseases. We earn everything that we get because we've been living a certain way. We don't overnight wake up with diabetes. It's been 25 years of eating, sleeping, behaving, thinking, and being in a certain environment that's caused that. And so what we do is we get everybody on some type of wearable device, tracking HRV, helping them teach, learn, and understand what their body's going through. Then we get a DNA, epigenetic, cellular micronutrient test, and a gut biome panel, along with the hormone panel, to understand what's happening internally.
Is this blood work, saliva, urine? Like what? How does that work?
So there's 4:
Okay.
spit, urine, blood, and stool.
So all of the above, people.
All of the above. So we're understanding,
not leaving any stone unturned. I love that.
Exactly. Very comprehensive to understand, hey, what's happening? We know the gut-brain connection and what's occurring there. It's literally the gut is your second brain. Mm-hmm. At the cellular level, we want to know what you're deficient in. Micronutrients from every mineral, every amino acid, every vitamin, so that we can now take it from your, just what you're ingesting and make sure that we're actually using it at the cellular level.
Okay.
Because cellular mutation is what causes chronic illness. Like we might have a high amount of vitamin C or vitamin D in our blood serum, but we don't have the cofactor to bring it from our serum into our cell. So our body still thinks that we're deficient in something that we're actually supplementing, or we're eating oranges every day, but it's not able to get from our serum into the cell and be in a usable form. So once we get this testing back, now we can start to generate and create customized behaviors, customized lifestyle adjustments, as well as customized supplementation formulas. So we have a doctoral team that custom formulates every supplement for each and every person. So single pill form that you're being able to use that's built for you. And then we retest every quarter. So as your body starts to adjust, as these things start to really become new form, as your body again gets exposed to different environments, different habits, different lifestyle changes, it's going to require different things as well. So this is now the process that's built for you and adapts with you as you continue to go. The last thing that we do is we have a team of people around you. So we have 3 people: a functional medicine doc, an RD, and a mental performance therapist. So these people are now working with you on all of these habits and behaviors that are curated to you. And then secondly, we have your mental performance coach, your mental performance therapist that's helping you overcome certain thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that are standing in your way that have been generated for a long period of time. And so over the course of time, we're able to now transcend that human experience and where you are, because we've treated now holistic or health in a truly holistic and integrated way, rather than trying
very personal way too. Very personal.
Totally.
Very, very exactly what's going on with that individual.
Yep.
Is it mostly supplement based, or do you get involved in like hormones and peptides and things like that as well?
So we don't dive into the hormones and peptides.
Okay.
We leave that to other people who are experts in that space. We do everything through lifestyle, behavior, food, supplementation, and then just sheer behavior change.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I like that because low risk,
Yep.
right? Like you don't have to really educate people on side effects and things like that. This is all natural. This is basically behavioral changes. Like this is like, hey, and making the right choices. Like instead of choosing this, you're going to choose this. Instead of doing this, you're going to do that. Like, and then obviously take these supplements that will help that, and eat these foods, right? Yep. So that's cool. We need to collaborate, you with my osteopathic center. So this is the IV suite, and I just did a panel with 3 doctors from the osteopathic center.
Love it.
And they do a lot of this, IVs for heavy metals and chelation, and then they do the peptides and the hormones. But it sounds like there could be a lot of synergy there. So we should definitely connect you with them. So they do a lot of that same testing that you do, and just more from a standpoint though of figuring out what kind of like metals and contaminants are in people's bodies, because they're seeing like. Literally, he told me that that's the most thing they see is metals in people's body, or mercury and things like this that can really mess you up. So that's interesting.
The unique part about that is I usually call it like a triangle, right?
Okay.
So if you got the base of the triangle is HRV and the 8 controllables. So 8 controllables being exercise, nutrition, hydration, sleep, immune function, environment, mindset, and self-care. So when you take these 8 lifestyle-based components, pair it to HRV, which is that measure of how your body's handling stress and strain, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, it empowers you as the individual to know, what am I doing in my day-to-day life that is working or not working? Once we have a solid understanding of the foundation of behaviors and the things that we're being exposed to every single day, we can now take the step to the next level, which is your testing. Let's get a little bit more understanding so we can personalize these changes, personalize your supplementation, personalize your nutrition, personalize your immune function, personalize your hydration and what you need from a electrolyte or amino acid standpoint. And then lastly, let's get to the top with tools like your red light, your cold plunge, your sauna, your peptides, your IVs, like all of these things. But what we do is in society, and what the world tells us is, let's flip that on its head.
We just talked about this. Like, bro, you're nailing it on the head right now.
And let's
just give you these pills and these hormones and these peptides. But if you don't change your behavior, then nothing will change. You can't, like, it's like people think that you inject steroids and all of a sudden you look like a bodybuilder. No, it doesn't work like that. And so we literally just talked about this. You nailed that. That's so true. Like, let's start with the basics first. What's your go-to? I know you said wearables. I have one of those 8 sleep mattresses.
They're awesome.
So I get the HRV. What is considered, like, how do we know what is good and what's not? Because, like, it'll say in range. Is that a good thing, or is that, you know what I mean? Or are you supposed to be?
Totally.
Yeah. So I honestly, I'm a little old school, I'll be honest. And I basically, go with the rule of thumb of, do I feel good today? That kind of thing. I'm not a big fan of wearables. I did get the 8 sleep because my wife and I we sleep hot. Like, we're always hot, and then we're different. 2
different temperatures.
Yes. And she's actually way hotter than me in both senses of the word. But I'm curious to know, do you have like your go-to, devices that you think are like better than? I see you're wearing one now. So.
Yeah. So I'll answer a question here previous, or touch on the point first, is when it comes to wearables, what we look for, and just the way our society has been driven, whether it's athletics, whether it's just business people or high performing individuals, oftentimes we use data as like a crutch to say like, I'm good. I'm justifying my poor decision today, right? Like I
drank all last night, but hey, my HRV is still good, so I guess I'm okay. Yeah.
Or I drank all night last night, my HRV is low. I need to take the day off today.
Yeah. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, using it as an excuse.
Exactly. Yeah. Using it as the excuse of why not to do something, rather than using it as a tool to empower you and be like, oh my gosh, I drank last night. Look at what my HRV did. What do I need to do today to ultimately reverse what I did last night? Need to get into the sauna, need to hydrate properly, need to get on a better sleep routine tonight, need to get a little bit more breath work in, need to get my workout in. Like, it becomes so important. And then to see the difference between when you go out and you have your poor behaviors versus when you have your great behaviors, look at the difference in HRV, an empowerment tool, something that helps you storytell to really change what your thought process is about these behaviors in a real impactful way, and help with the buy-in factor. When you talk about HRV has been misused in our society and in fitness and in health so poorly. It really bothers me because it's been used as this weapon, something that allows people to, again, justify poor behaviors and is really misunderstood. When you look at what HRV is at its core, you have your EKG, right? Yep. And at the top of the EKG, that's the biggest push of blood from your heart, is called your R wave. If we were to sit here and you've got a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, by nature, you would think, oh, my heart is beating at 1 beat per second. 60 beats per minute divided by 60 seconds is 1 beat per second. Right. But it's not how our body functions. Our body only has our heartbeat when it's necessary. So if we look at HRV, it might be in the same resting heart rate of 60 seconds, it might beat at 787 milliseconds, 920 milliseconds, 1.1 seconds, 947 milliseconds. But in that same minute, your heart has beaten 60 times. And so the greater the variability, the greater parasympathetic your body is, the less stress, the ready to take on stress it is, the more recovered it is. Think of it like just loosey-goosey. Your heart's just like, yeah, I'll beat whenever, man. Like, I feel really good. I'm ready to take on stress. Versus when you get into a stressful situation, it's like, I got to beat, I got to beat, I got to beat, I got to keep Manning alive, I got to beat, and it gets a little bit more regulated.
So just so I hear you correctly, because I want to follow this. This is really good. The more variability, the better.
The better.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure I heard it, and so especially with the audience. So.
And so what you'll see is see a higher HRV number.
Okay.
So when you wake up in the morning, you might have a 75 HRV versus a 35 is when you usually are. 35 means that you're suppressed and in a sympathetic state. So there's stress going on. The crazy part about this, you could have a nasty fight with your wife the night before, go to bed, and wake up with the exact same HRV depleted as if you ran a marathon the day before. The body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress.
That's fascinating.
I tell this story all the time. Had a client who ran a marathon, had a client going through a divorce, had a client who just sold his business, and had another client who was really trying to just like figure out who he was.
Okay.
Every single one of them, although different numbers, had the same HRV downward curve, which is just so crazy to think about, that our body has no clue the stress that it's under. And so if we think of our body as a cup, right? And we can only eliminate so many stressors at a time. We only have so much capacity to fill up in this cup.
Right.
But if all of a sudden you go work out and you're pushing yourself really hard, and then you go to work and you're trying to figure out how to make everything like function, and you're worrying about how to pay bills, and then you go home and you're running around with newborn kids, and your wife is on you, and you're having like an argument, and then you're not sleeping well, and then you're not eating well. Well, man, your cup's full. Your cup's overflowing. It doesn't have anywhere for this stress to go. So how does it start showing up? Symptoms such as headache, fatigue, nausea, anxiety, that the world has told us is normal. This is what it takes. And then 5 years later, 8 years later, 1 year later, 25 years later, we're sitting here with diabetes, we're sitting here with dementia, we're sitting here with a mental breakdown.
Right.
All things that are preventable if we're all of a sudden have a KPI such as HRV to give us this understanding. I tell this story as well. I love this is we know what true health looks like, but we don't know where we are today. Came from Canada, I talked to you about this, and it's home to the biggest mall in the world, at West Edmonton Mall, like 45 different phases. It's got like water park, Galaxyland. I
think I've read about this.
Oh, indoor golf center. Like it is, like it's got dolphins and submarines and a big whale that goes around.
No way.
It's nuts. So I went back there and I went in and I went and did my shopping. I parked outside of the water park, big sign, green sign, D3. Walked in for 2 or 3 hours and I was coming out. I'm like, man, water park, D3, that's where my car is, but I don't know how to get there. I went to the directory, and when I looked at it, I saw, okay, water park's right here, but what was the next thing that I looked for? At star, it says you are here.
Where to start from.
Yep, you are here.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't know where you're going.
Exactly. So many of us in our health journeys, we know what true health looks like. We know what it wants to feel like. We know what it wants to look like, but we don't know where we are today. Yeah. And so we keep grabbing at things. We keep grabbing at straws. We keep trying to find our way to this area, but it wasn't built for us. That tool wasn't what we needed. We didn't know what we needed because we didn't have a KPI. We didn't know where we were. So we continually stay lost. We continually stay walking through this mall randomly until we stop, we pause, we look at a map, we say, hey, this is where you are. This is where you need to go.
And tell people what KPI is, because to a lot of people, they don't. So it's key performance indicators, right?
Correct.
So, a lot of times I'll be in these marketing meetings and they'll be throwing out acronyms and stuff. And I'm like writing them down and then Googling them later. So I always remember that when guys like us start throwing out those things, to make sure that we tell people what they mean.
Sorry. So you need like just a key indicator, like a key number, something that lets you know where you are, so that all of a sudden, once you see where you are, you're like, oh, I'm just one decision away from being where I needed to be.
One thing you do a really good job of is doing these. I I have a way of explaining things, but you have an amazing way of explaining this. Like it's really the first time. And I love meeting people that say the same thing, but in a different way that is easier for people to digest. And I think people are going to get a lot out of this because of the way you're describing it, because of these practical examples. Like the mall, that's such a great way. Rich is probably one of the best communicators I've ever watched, and he does a really good job of that. And you're reminding me of those, like giving those practical examples that people can take and then apply. Tangible, yeah. So I'm in awe of that. Like, so congrats on that, because you nailed that description of finding out where you are to ultimately get to where you want to be. I talk about it more from a like just doing standpoint. I probably don't do a good job of explaining the why. I just put people in a better position and try to help them. But that was really good. So let's talk about a little bit now of how to get a better heart rate variable, how to deal with regular stress. Like the way I teach or coach it, or however you say it, is like, I do these things so that when life happens, it's like, I got this. Like, it's not a big deal. When someone cuts me off in the road, like if I don't get my cold plunge, my sauna, my workout, if I'm not intermittent fasting, if I'm not doing all these healthy things, then somebody cuts me off. I'm like, I lose my mind. And there are days where you miss, and you can literally see the difference. Yeah. And so I would love to hear like, some of your toolkit, stuff that can help people.
Awesome. So like, when you come back and you take a look at it, we've broke it down to the 8 controllables, right? Yeah. So exercise, nutrition, hydration, sleep, immune function, environment, self-care, and mindset. These 8 things is what ultimately I found in my postgraduate work that really moved the needle in improving HRV, improving your resiliency and capacity to handle stress. Big thing we need to understand is that our body has to have stress on it in order to grow. Okay. Just like if you want to go and get bigger muscles, you can't sit on your couch and go, oh, I can't stress myself too much, or I'm going to pick up 10s and like I'm going to get real nice biceps. Right. You have to pass and progressively overload yourself. But you can't go and do curls with 45s on each side every single day and expect to see muscle growth, because you're now going to be overstimulated. Okay. And so the same thing has to happen. There has to be this nice rhythm between what I call overreaching and regeneration. And so when you think about your day and how you're overreaching, the world does an amazing job of overreaching us, right? In financial crisis, to the banks going under, to recession time, to your being in an argument with your spouse, or being with people just in the environment, whatever it is. The world does a great job of overreaching you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. That's already looked after for you. You don't have to figure out how to do that. Yeah. But our body has to be overstressed and and stimulated physically in order to grow. What we need to work on and what we need to have an intentionality about is this regeneration space. What does it look like in order to give ourselves high quality nutrition? What does it look like to hydrate ourselves properly? What does it look like to have a morning and night routine that prepares us for sleep? Right. And when we live in intentionality, when we live in consistency of that, we now give ourselves this opportunity to grow. I give this often an example in kind of like this story, right? If I was to send you outside and it's raining, you know what Miami monsoons are like. I send you out with a thimble. I said, okay, Manning, I want you to bring me as much rain as you can. And you're like, bro, I got a thimble. I was like, okay, go. You put the thimble outside, how much water are you going to get? Not much. Not a lot, right. But if all of a sudden you go out and you bring it back in and out and bring it back in and out and bring it back in, and I'm like, okay, Manning, you've been doing that really well back and forth. Now I'm going to give you a cup. Do the same thing. Well, now you're able to have a greater capacity to handle and bring in more water. It's the same thing with our bodies. Another example I often give is an elastic band. If all of a sudden you go and you pull that elastic band right away, it's going to break. Right. Same thing with all of a sudden we start overreaching and overstretching ourselves and we pull it, it's going to snap. Our bodies are going to snap. We can't handle that type of overload. But if we pull slowly on the elastic band, let it come back in and rest, pull it a little further, set it down and rest, pull it a little further, that band that was originally maybe 2-3 inches in diameter is now 5-6 inches in diameter, and it's gotten bigger. The capacity to handle more has gotten bigger. The same thing happens with our bodies. We can learn and teach and educate it to have a greater capacity to take on more stress, but we have to focus our intention on this little regeneration space. The place that I always tell people to start, if you're not going to go deep into any of this, is sleep and nutrition. Those are going to be your two biggest ones that you can see the needle move the heaviest. And it's a simple 3-2-1 rule with sleep. So when you go to sleep, get consistent with a bedtime. Somewhere within 30 minutes. If you're choosing 10 o'clock, great. Somewhere between 10 and 10:30, that's your bedtime. What time are you waking up? Sometime between 6 and 6:30. Be consistent with it. If it's 7 and 7:30, whatever, be consistent with it. But we're going to reverse engineer the best night's sleep possible. 3 hours before bed, no more major meals. There's 400 times more melatonin produced in our gut than by the pineal gland in our brain. As soon as we take in food, it's a stressor. It's going to increase inflammation. It's going to increase cortisol levels because, again, our body's just like, oh, hey, Manning just ate. Can't have this just sitting in there. Going to have to start working on it. Increase cortisol naturally suppresses melatonin release. So 3 hours before bed, no major meals. 2 hours before bed.
Which, by the way, is new. So never heard that one before. Over here taking mental notes. So thank you for that. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, you're good. 2 hours before bed, no more work. Like eliminate. Yeah. But I mean,
no, but I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
Think about it. Like 10:30 at night, if that's when your bedtime is, 8:30 is probably like, if you've started work at 7:30 or 8:30 in the morning, you put in a 12-hour day, man.
And it's such, and then also too, you can't keep up.
Can't keep the pace.
You can't keep that up if you're doing that day in and day out and responding to emails at 10 o'clock at night right before you lay your head down. So it's not only great advice, but it's practical and it's going to help people. So
I don't want to get off topic, but a story just on that note. When I was in the NHL, it was my 4th year. I was just motivated, right? Like I want to prove myself. I want to just be a difference maker. And our head coach, Hall of Famer, came up to me. He goes, Justin, you're so gifted. You're so intelligent. But I would take a less talented, a less intelligent person at 100% of their capacity than what I'm getting from you at 60%. And it hit me right in the face. I was like, bro, like I'm working my bag off, but I was getting 3 hours, 4 hours of sleep a night. I was staying up until 3-4 in the morning, crushing data, creating new plans, all this stuff. And I wake up at 7-8 o'clock in the morning to get to the rink to start everything up. And I was just gassed. Yeah. And I knew I was pushing. I knew I was grinding. And all of a sudden him to say that to me, I was like, man, you're right. Like I can be more efficient. I can be more productive. I can
work a little bit smarter than harder, right?
I can give more by doing less.
Exactly.
And that's where it came down
to. I
to.
think all guys like us, we've all been down that road. Totally. We've all thought that the harder we work, the better. And I'm definitely, as I age, I'm starting to realize like actually less volume actually increases the capacity is exactly what you just said.
100%. 100%. So 2 hours before bed, no work.
Okay, so 3 hours before bed, no food.
No major
meals.
Yep.
2 hours before, no work.
Yep.
Keep going.
So 2 hours before bed, no work. So cut that out. That's like texting with people, emailing with people, trying to make decisions for the business, trying to make life decisions, anything.
Right.
Like eliminate that. 1 hour before bed, no blue light. So if you're gonna watch TV, like put a blue light filter on or wear blue light glasses. If you're gonna look at your phone, again, blue light blockers. iPad, same thing. Every 30 minutes of blue light exposure after sunset causes a hour delay in melatonin release. So again, we're coming back to this concept of how is your body working? Like we've all heard this, like don't watch TV at night or blue light is negative, but why? Like what's the reason?
Right.
Well, our body actually stops producing melatonin, which we need to go to sleep. And what's the precursor to melatonin? Serotonin. Serotonin and dopamine are what make us happy, what make us feel good, what make us feel fulfilled. So if we're not getting the melatonin we need and we're not getting the serotonin and dopamine levels, what's it going to do from a depression and anxiety and all of these forms? Right. So like all of this stuff starts to make sense, right? So 1 hour before bed, no blue light, try to eliminate all of that. And then I say in that last hour, we want to think about temperature, water, air, and light. Eliminate any type of bright lights. So turn the lights down, get them a little bit dimmer. Mm-hmm. Temperature, we want to be cool. We want to be going to bed cold or in some type of like cool environment. Water, we want to try to have some form of warm liquid go into our body, be it like tea, be it hot water with lemon. And then air, calming breath series. Could be a 4-second in, 4-second hold, 4-second out, 4-second hold, box breath.
Box breath, yeah.
It could be a parasympathetic stimulating breath, like an inhale for 4, exhale for 8, like something calming. And just build that into your night routine. Is it that you go have a shower? Is it that you meditate? Is that you read? Is it you have a great conversation with your spouse? Is it that you hang out and pet your dog? Like what is that night routine that you
Sex before bed?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Just throwing that out there.
Get into it.
Making sure we're aligned.
I'll crack a joke offline, but it was something one of the Phillies guys said the other day. It put me on the floor. But yeah, so like what can you put into that parasympathetic routine 1 hour before bed with those four areas? Remember, water, temperature, air, and light. And
it's great advice.
And if we can get down to that, and that's the process in which we go to bed, then all of a sudden when we wake up, we go back to those same 4 things. Air, energizing breaths. In for 2, out for 1. In for 2, out for 1. In for 2, out for 1. A hypoxic breath.
Okay.
That's going to stimulate energy in the morning.
Right.
Heat. For our temperature, we want to be high heat. So is that sauna? Is that steam room? Is it a hot shower? Is it a hot tub? Is it that you have a chilly sleep or a sleep 8 mattress that you can jack up the temperature in the morning so it naturally stimulates cortisol to get us going?
Okay.
Light, let's get exposed to the brightest light possible. Are you waking up with the sun? Amazing. Like that's the best way to get the best quality light first thing in the morning. Start stimulating that cortisol naturally.
Calling you Huberman right now.
He's
so big on the sunlight thing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Start stimulating that cortisol naturally. And then the 4th thing is water. Let's get 16 to 24 ounces of high quality water in, preferably salted water. That's again is going to prime our body.
Preferably NDOH2O.
There you go. I love it. Throw some element in there and you're good to go.
Yeah.
That is going to prime our cells for absorbing the rest of the water throughout the day. And so like if you can literally use that framework that was just outlined, like that is going to change your capacity in how you show up every single day. And then we can just build on that. Then we can build on, okay, how are we dealing and handling stress throughout the day? What is our body required from a supplement standpoint, nutrition standpoint, a mental standpoint? Do we need to start thinking differently? Are there certain beliefs, certain changes that we need to establish and create? Mm-hmm. And you all of a sudden get fully dialed in this human experience that we're in to transcend what the world has told us is just normal and you have to fight through.
No, it's such good advice. It's and it's not hard, like you didn't say anything that like, I was like, oh my God, I got to do that. Like everything is really just making the right decisions. And that's why if you start with that, then that's a great foundation to then start to add the other things. So you touched on sleep, you touched on waking up and how to wake up properly. And then, for you, and I know you're a big legacy guy and you do pit a lot and Probably the biggest sweater we have in the team. No, I'm just kidding.
I would not put it
We
by
have
it.
several videos of Justin like literally drenched in the workout. It's actually phenomenal. But from a standpoint of, because I'm big on just telling people like, look, if you can't do anything, you have two legs and start walking. And I often lean on water and walking. Like I feel like those two W's are like so important for people's health. And I feel like people just don't do it. They don't drink enough water and they don't walk enough. For you, is there any kind of like, standard that you kind of like guide people with when it comes to exercise, especially people, not people like us that are really go in and we've been doing this for years, but these, I feel like there's so many people that they just need to start. Totally. Like that's it. Like all we're asking you to do is start. And a lot of times I try to get people to come to Legacy or come to a pit class and they're like, oh, well, let me get ready for that, and it can't be about that. You just have to start. Now, to your point, I think what happens is people try to do too much too soon. Totally. Then they burn themselves out and then they give up. They get so sore that they can barely walk. And then it's frustrating, right? And it's detrimental to that longevity game. And I love what you were talking about earlier about the band and about like, doing the little things to begin with, not doing everything. So I guess just talk a little bit about that, like your kind of, philosophy when it comes to just getting people started on an exercise routine.
Yeah. So for us, even in like our general guidelines of like a framework of what we try to get people to do is if you can be intentional with exercise for 30 minutes a day. Intentional exercise. I don't care what that is. That could be getting on a Peloton. That could be doing a yoga class. That could be going for a little jog. That could be lifting weights. 30 minutes of intentional exercise. Mm-hmm.
So shopping is not intentional.
Correct.
As I tell people that all the time, when I talk about walking, oh, I went to the mall today. No, that's not. And I love the fact that you're saying intentional. Yep. I call it like the construction worker syndrome. Like, we have a lot of construction going on right now in the city. Excuse me. And if you pay attention to construction workers, they're out there working their butts off, like intensely. But most of them have terrible bodies, right? Oh yeah. It's because it's not intentional. Correct. They're at work, but they're not working out. And so that intentionality is very important.
It's a great point because here's the thing that people have to understand is that like going back to the stress concept. Yeah. They're putting massive stress on their body, but they're not making any mileage because of it. They're not getting any benefit because of it. Mm-hmm. They're just putting random miles on their body and their body doesn't like it. It's something that is overloaded. They're in this big overload space, but they haven't done anything for regeneration because the sun is stress on your body. The noise that they're exposed to all the time is stress on your body. The fumes they're smelling every day are stress on their body. The physical labor they're doing is stress on their body. The stress of knowing, hey, when do we have to be here? All of this is stress on their body that isn't preparing them to be able to take steps forward and actually progress. There's no progressive overload there. They're not doing anything that they can build on. Right. It's just, hey, here it is. And what I call, it's like no man's land. Yeah. You're not getting anywhere from it. So 30 minutes of intentional exercise every single day, and then move every 90 to 120 minutes for 5 minutes. Or so like every hour and a half to 2 hours, set your alarm on your phone. Yeah. A lot of people sitting at desk jobs, like set it at every 90 to 120 minutes. Get up, go for a 5-minute walk. Go and fill your water bottle back up. Go get outside. Go do 5 minutes of breath work. Like go and move every 90 to 120 minutes, and it'll be amazing what it starts to do for your
I was just about to say, I think the thing that sticks out is people don't realize how much that will stimulate their minds.
Oh, crazy.
Because movement, like I tell people all the time, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling not creative, if you're feeling like brain fog, move. Yeah. Like that's one of the things that people just wait for like their brain to stimulate, to give them motivation or And ultimately moving actually stimulates everything and will help you with your work, will help you with conversation, will help you be present. Yeah. You know, a lot of times we're not present. Like we're here, but we're not here. Yeah. You know, and our boss is talking and we're somewhere off in La La Land. And most of the time it's just because we haven't done the things that you're talking about.
I love what you're talking about, because at the same time, like I know people are like, oh my gosh, 8 controllables, that's a lot to put into a day.
Yeah.
But you can start to see how they all start to overlap. Like your self-care can be your 5-minute intervals that you're going and doing something just for you. Or it could be that you're doing your workout in the morning. Like that is sacred time. Like you don't touch that.
Right.
We had a client say, Justin, my 30 minutes of meditation I do just for myself buys me 8 hours of highly productive, purposeful work throughout the day.
That's amazing.
He goes, I'm an investor. I would make that investment every single day of the week when I'm getting a 20x return on the time that I'm putting in.
Yeah.
100%. Another story, we had a New York Times bestseller. He's written 11 books, 5 of them New York Times. He's sold 15 million copies worldwide. And he was on a time deadline. And he called me and we were on a call and you could just tell like he was just stressed. His HRV had plummeted over the last month. And we were like, what's going on? Like, what are you at? And he's like, dude, I've got a book deadline coming up in 6 weeks. I can't break through. Like, I'm stuck. And I said to him, when's the last time you did something for just yourself? And he's like, bro, something for just myself? Are you kidding me? I got a book deadline in 6 weeks that I have to hit.
Right.
Like, what do you mean something for myself? And I said, just like, play me out on this. Like, just hear me. And he goes, I don't know, like years. I was like, okay, so what is something that you would do for just you? And as soon as we broke down some walls and got him here, he's like, water skiing. Like, that's my thing. Water skiing. He lives on a lake. He's got a boat in his backyard.
Oh my gosh.
He's got neighbors.
He hasn't used it in 3 years. Yeah,
exactly. I said, okay, for the next 3 weeks, you're going to choose 4 days a week and you're going to ski for an hour every morning. He's like, no, I'm not. I was like, yes, you are. Like, just hear me on this.
Yeah.
Like, play with me on this.
Like, do what I'm telling you to do.
Trust me.
Talk about great advice, man. Like, you nailed it. You nailed it.
I'm going to get chills when I finish this story. So first 3 days, he goes out for his hour, texts me. He's like, nothing, man. That's wasting my time. Second week, he goes out for a first couple, and I don't hear from him. Third day, he goes out, and he texts me. He goes, you available? I was like, oh boy, here, I'm going to get it. I'm like, yeah. He calls me. He's in tears. He goes, I just got off. I'm going to cry. He goes, I just got off a 3-hour water ski. He goes, I just couldn't stop. Like, I was in a flow. I was getting it. And I wrote the entire book in my mind while I was out there.
Wow.
And he goes, I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to bang it out. By the end of the second week, the book was done.
Amazing.
And he just goes, I was able to get into a different state. I was able to feel it in a different way than I ever had been before. And that's that concept of overreaching and regeneration that we talk about, and being able to teeter-totter back and forth between doing really deep personal work that's purposeful and intentional, but it has to drive from your lifestyle and how you act and how you build that capacity to do this for yourself. And it has to be rooted in a deep sense of like purpose, a deep sense of desire. Mm-hmm. I know I talked about those 4 stressors. This will be my last story, I promise.
No, you can tell as many stories as you want. They're great. And let me just add to that real fast before you say that is another thing too that stood out to me is that it didn't work the first time.
Correct.
And for people out there, there are a lot of times it's the commitment to something and the consistency that compounds that gets you the results. It's not doing something once and then expecting some miracle. It's committing to something more than once that will end up giving you. So that's what I heard when I heard you. By the way, great story. But what I heard was the first thing that just jumped out to me is that he called you and said it didn't work. And then and then I love the fact that you spoke life in him that keep going, keep trying. And then he did, and then boom, he had his moment. But I think most of the time people give up. They give up on themselves, they give up on the process, and they don't allow it to change them. They don't allow it to work. like they just quit too soon. And often it's the second try, the third try, the fourth try. So, yeah.
It's such a great segue into like what I was going to mention is you give up because you're trying to do something that's not rooted in desire. It's not rooted in like, this is what I was called to do. This is what I'm meant to do. This is like truly what I need to do. You've created this laundry list of to-dos for yourself or action steps because that's what the world told you to do. You have to cold plunge. You have to sauna. You have to work out. You have to eat this way. You have to meditate. You have to do breath work. You have to do like, you've got 95 things here and you're like, bro, how do I do this? It has to be rooted in you. It has to be rooted into that true desire of what's there. I had this billionaire that came and was working with us. He had never, like no need in the world. Had all the cars, the homes, beautiful family, 5 kids, a beautiful wife, all the vacations that he could ever want. He comes, he's just like, man, I'm so unhappy. I'm so unfulfilled. I feel like there's more for me. And I've been trying to lose weight for 5 years. I've been the yo-yo guy. He goes, Justin, like, help me lose weight. I was like, well, bro, that's not really what we do, but let's have a conversation. And I said, what do you want to do? He's like, I need to lose 30 pounds. I said, okay, and let's call this guy Jim. I said, okay, Jim, what's on the other side of those 30 pounds that's not available to you today? And he started thinking, and he goes, what do you mean? I said, what are you going to have? Like tangibly, what are you going to feel or what are you going to have in your space, your earthly experience by achieving that's not available to you right now? And he teared up and he goes, man, I just want my son to be proud of me and I want him to see me as like a real life superhero.
It's so funny you just said that because literally inside of my head, I literally said, I'm doing this for my kids. Like, because it just sounded like that. That's what you were going with. That's cool.
And so as we were able to reestablish his heart, reestablish his desire, that desire was able to change something and flip a switch in the thoughts and beliefs that he was having in his mind. By flipping the thoughts and beliefs in his mind, he was able to change his physical actions, his behaviors, his lifestyle, which impacted his body. And ultimately that impacted his spirit, which was everything in around him, everything he was realizing.
Right.
Over the course of the next 11 months, he was so diligent, on it, consistent, in every aspect of the people he was hanging out with. He'd stopped hanging out with people that were driving him to the bars, that were driving him to drink certain things.
Right.
He had deep levels of intention when he started to travel and go on the road with different things. The way he ate, the way he hydrated, the way he slept, his morning routines, his night routines, his supplementation routines, everything, the process of how he worked with his coaching team, everything was consistent. Fast forward 11 months. It's Halloween night. And he had not lost 30 pounds. He'd lost almost 70.
70?
Almost
Wow.
70. And he sends me this video. He dressed up as Batman. His son didn't know. And his son's 6. And he stands outside. He's outside in his little driveway area. And his wife is videotaping. And he's got video on their son, and he goes, "Hey, let's go see Dad." And his son is dressed as Batman too.
Yeah.
And he comes out the door, and he opens up the door, and his dad's standing there, and his son goes, "Dad, oh my gosh, you look like a real life superhero."
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sobbing.
I know,
I'm
right?
weeping.
I mean, geez.
Like he sends me this. He's like, dude, I can't tell you how amazing it is. Like when we talk about a life that is truly healthy, a life that is healthy in all dimensions, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, heart, mind, body, and spirit, that is what true health is about. That is what harnessing this is about. This is what the human experience is meant to be. It's not what the world tells us to be. It's not that we go and we have to do everything that is outlined by people on Instagram, by people that, by your best friend, by your coworkers. It's what is personal to you. What does your body need? What is your body asking for? What is your earthly experience about? So that you can prepare yourself for what's already been prepared for you. So that you can lean into the consistency, because like we said, and like my dad told me at 12, and this is why I say it transcends everything for me, is talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid. And what is your payment that you're looking for?
No, so well said. And again, I think the thing that stood out to me most about that story was how you pivoted from, people get so obsessed with the number, right? I have to lose 30 pounds. I have to lose 30, but they don't have a why behind it. And I love that you made him, you gave him purpose. You gave him more than just a number, you know, that he's going to wake up every day and get on a scale and, you know, oh, I've only lost 2 pounds. And it has to be something bigger than that. And then another thing I heard is that it wasn't about him. I think oftentimes when we can attach it to how it's going to affect those around us, and obviously it starts with you, but by being the best version of yourself, that automatically everybody's getting the benefit of that around you. So again, just a phenomenal story, but it says a lot about your coaching style, because you immediately identified, okay, here's a guy that has everything in the world that he ever would want, but he's still not happy, and yet he wants to lose 30 pounds. There's something deeper here. Like, you could just kind of tell. So that's really cool.
It's awesome. I mean, every single one of you guys listening to this right now is you have a calling, you have a purpose, you have a mission. You were built to be great. You were built to be excellent. And quite frankly, you were built to be world-class at something. Yep. Like world-class. And that purpose that you are on pursuit of is somebody else's miracle. Like, go back to what Manning just said, is the purpose that you're feeling, that desire to do something great, that is somebody else's miracle. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow. You might never even realize the miracle in which you give, but you have a calling and a obedience to excellence, so that you can truly realize what has already been prepared for you. You can get to that level. And so whatever it is that you're feeling inside, this sense of like spiritual discomfort, this spiritual unrest, this calling, this pulling, like, listen to it, lean into it, and realize that your earthly experience is the vehicle to get you there. And in order to do that, you have to prepare yourself for what's being prepared for you. And you will realize a life that is far different than anything you could ever imagine. Excellent.
I mean, bro, you're very impressive, and
thank you.
Really enjoying this. I'm glad that I heard you out. So, like, because I tell you, like, oftentimes I again, it just happens a lot, and I've been disappointed. Like, but you know what? There was something. I really applaud people that, like, know what they want and they go after it, and they're not scared to, like, just go for it. You know what I mean? And that's something I can tell you're about, and that's cool. But we definitely got to figure out a way to collaborate on some stuff moving forward. And
100%.
And you have a lot of wisdom to give to people. I know for a fact you're going to help a lot, even more people now. You're young, and you have a lot to offer. You're in the perfect city. You're in a great community, and I think we just got to, like, figure out a way to continue to help people, because people need to hear this. They need to apply this. They need help. You know, and I think it's gonna require an army, right?
100%.
Because there's so much. I feel like lately, if you're on Instagram and so, like, there's so much information, right?
You're inundated with it.
Yeah, and it's just constant. It's constant, and there's contradictory. There's this thing, and then there's so much advice given without what you talked about earlier, without identifying what your starting point is. It's like, just throwing people into the fire is not going to work. Like, you got to identify where they are, diagnose it, and then go from there. So, but
people are thriving for something different too.
100%.
Like thriving for different. And that's, I think, when I come back to it, is even with you and your mission and like, sure, yes, you come in and you go, oh, they have weight equipment in here. They have a sled, they have a rope, they have all the cardio equipment, they have cool lightings and pictures all over. It's a gym. Well, understand the message behind it. Understand the concept behind it. This is different.
Yep.
So that's what I love is different. Like people are thriving for different. They want something different. They don't want the same old. They don't want like you talk about on Instagram. They're getting the same messages from everywhere all the time.
They're given the same environment too.
Exactly.
So like I absolutely like am thrilled that you said the word different. So I often say to people, I'm not trying to be the best. I'm trying to be different. You know, like I'm not trying to be the best at something. I'm trying to create something, be the first to do it, and then obviously be the leader in that category. So I want to be a category creator. I don't want to just be the best in a category. And so, you know, I trained celebrities and athletes for years and years and years, and I kept traveling the world, primarily in the US, but occasionally overseas. And every single time I walked in a gym, the front desk, offices to the right, cardio section with 1 million TVs, machine section, and then the free weight section. And then you see everyone sectioned off. You got the old people on the cardio, you got, you know, the people over there using the machines, you got your meatheads over there working out, and everyone's got headphones on, everybody's staring at CNN, like, and no energy, feels kind of weird. Some are nicer than others, right? I mean, you have some where it's dirty and filthy, and some are really nice, like your Lifetimes or whatever, you know, Equinoxes. But, and you'll recognize this, we're from an athletic background, right? Like I'm college football, you're hockey. When you walk into weight rooms that are athletic based, like sports performance places, especially, and I'll use my example, a college football weight room, as soon as you walk in, the music's blasting, chalk's flying, you got the football team with their shirts off working out, you got the softball team over here. There is immediate energy as soon as you walk into the establishment. And I said to myself, I was like, why can't I create a commercial setting that gives you that feeling that as soon as you walk in, you feel something different? There's an energy. There's not TVs everywhere. You know, here we have one TV. And the only really reason why we have one TV, honestly, is aesthetics. It just kind of looks cool. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have a TV. And most gyms have the group exercise off to a corner, an aerobics room, you know, with your bazoo balls and your little teeny 3-pound weights and, you know, all these awkward classes or whatever. And it's all, you typically off to the side, or you go to these group exercise rooms that are down in a basement. It's black, pitch black, dark with strobe lights, and makes no sense. So for me, I was like, no. The group the group concept needs to be the focal point, so that if you come in with a personal trainer or on your own, you're feeding off the energy of like-minded people trying to accomplish something together. And it's like, it immediately enhances the atmosphere, the experience, the energy, the camaraderie. It gives it that team environment. There's a lot of like high-fiving. There's a lot of meeting people. And we've had, you know, legacy babies, legacy marriages. And so I don't even know where I'm going with this, but my point is that you said different. And I want you to know that it almost sounds like the way you're doing your business too, is that you're doing something that no one else is doing in your own way. Obviously, and again, not to downplay other people out there doing similar things, but I think if you can do it differently and you can set yourself apart, then you're almost creating your own lane. And then you just, obviously there'll be people trying to jump on that train with you, but stay learning, stay growing, stay serving. I think that's another thing too that VU has helped me with tremendously. It's just that we're in the service industry. Totally. Like we are in the service industry.
Bro, this is your ministry.
Exactly. Like it's like, I tell people all the time that we see people more than they see their doctors. Like that's a fact. If you're a coach, if you're in the fitness industry, people are coming to you minimum 2 days a week, right? Like, but most of the time they're coming, like you said, 4, 5, 6 times a week. You go see your doctor once a year, maybe, if that. I mean, I don't think I've been to a doctor in a long time. So we got to be responsible with that. Like these people are coming to us for their health and well-being. And it has to be more than just driving someone in the ground and making them have a hard workout. No, it has to be something that they can walk out better than they walked in. They can have something that they can apply to their lives, not just a workout, but can you take what you learned inside these walls and apply it to your relationship, or apply it to your job, apply it, you know what I mean? So that for me is why I did Legacy. That's why I feel like we're going to, grow this company in a different way. And just to circle back, we got to figure out a way, to collaborate. We got to collaborate now. So,
totally.
so
I mean, if you look at my backpack, on the front, it says "Own Your Different."
Own your different. That's so cool.
So with us, like, I got goosebumps when you said it. To me, different is a sacred word. It's a word that, like, I take full ownership over. Live different, feel different, get used to different, own your different. Like, everything about different is great. When you think about LeBron James, what you say, man, that guy's just built different. Think about Kobe, man, that guy just thought differently. Mm-hmm. Think about Walt Disney, man, the guy's creativity was just different. Like, different is something to be revered.
Yeah.
Different is something to be proud of. Different is something to be on display. Different is something people should aspire to. And guess what? Every single one of us was made different. Not one of us is the same.
And there's beauty in it too.
There's 100%
like that's
beauty.
Something too. I feel like society is trying to make us all the same and trying to put us in a box and say, no, this is how you're supposed to live your life. When there is so much beauty in diversity. There's so much beauty in meeting people that think differently, that act differently, that talk differently, that look differently. Like, that's what God created us.
Oh, yeah.
Every single person he created in its own, uniqueness, like the snowflake, analogy. It's like every single snowflake is different, and so are people. And why aren't we leaning into that? Why aren't we embracing our differences and finding what brings us together in those differences, instead of saying, like, no, I want him to be like me. I want him to think like me. Like, it's like when people marry, people that are just like them, and usually typically doesn't work, like, because there's something about growing with another individual. Another thing too about different, we're always evolving that different.
Completely.
Like, who I am today is not who I want to be tomorrow if I'm truly being intentional in my life of trying to grow into becoming a better person. And that's something too that I think people feel like, oh, these are the cards that were handed to me. I just, I'm just gonna be me. I'm just gonna, I hate that phrase. I'm just me, dog. Like, I'm just being me. Well, yes, be you, be authentically yourself, but at the same time, be the best version of that self that you can be.
You're always building. You're always building. You're always building. You're always growing. You're always evolving. You're always taking yourself and becoming that new different. Matthew McConaughey said it great. Like, my biggest mentor, the people I look up to, the person I look up to, is myself 5 years from today.
Yeah. Did you read Green Lights?
What a book.
Oh my God. Was it not so
what
good?
A book.
Like, and I listened to it, of course, because you have to hear him, narrating it. It's so good.
Like, I tell you what, I have such a man crush on that guy. Like, it's unbelievable the way that guy just lives his life.
When Rich, I told Rich to read it, and then when Rich read it, he sent me a text and he goes, "You have to do a book just like this." Because just like I'm Southern in the way I talk, and I have these kind of crazy stories that I've shared with Rich, and he's like, you have to do something like that. So it's on my bucket list to like do, a funnier style book like that, because it's just the story, the one story where he pees over the guy, like the bet. That was one of the best stories I think I've ever heard in my life. I was dying out laughing.
Classic.
Yeah.
The other one with like how his dad went out. So for all you guys listening, his dad goes. His dad was a big fisherman, and he'd take the kids out all the time. And he goes, Matthew goes, My dad was always right. Anything he said, he always accomplished. He'd always put his mind to it. And I can't tell you how many times he goes, son, they're out in the boat. He goes, son, I'm either going to go out of this world fishing or having sex with your mama.
And they were such an honest family, you know, like that's what I loved about, and really Matthew throughout his career, he's just been very authentic. So yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, it's like just coming back to own your different and coming back to like understanding that that's sacred. And I just honor you for the way that you've been able to lean into that and the way that you've been able to do that and harness that in something. Like you created something out of nothing. You created something out of thin air, out of an idea, out of a calling, out of something of a mission that was put on your heart that you stepped into and that you held steadfast to. Because again, going back to the level of consistency, this didn't happen overnight.
Right.
This didn't you didn't have the idea last year and be like, oh, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
This took time. It took consistency. It took effort. It took intentionality. And iteratively, over the course of time of showing up every single day, putting in the work, staying true to that desire, staying true to that difference, staying true to that mission is what people want to be a part of, is what people are seeking, is what people are looking for because they see it right away. The energy you talked about, you see it right away.
Yeah.
The feeling of different, you get it right away. And that is what will not only resonate with the people, but it will keep them coming back.
And while you're doing that, you know, people don't experience all the outside forces trying to pull you in different directions.
Correct.
You know, like the amount of times I said no and the amount of times I didn't do something because I knew I had to stay with blinders on because I had a mission. And I will say to the audience, like, often it's not adding things to your life, but it's actually subtracting. And oftentimes it's not saying yes, but it's actually saying no to keep you on that path. And you have to stay committed to what you said you were going to do long after the mood you set it in, has left. And that, you know, because every day you don't wake up feeling like passionate about things, especially, you know, if you're starting a new business, it's brutal. But that was one of the things that I just stayed committed to it no matter of the circumstances. Like no matter a pandemic came, okay, how are we going to handle it? Like, let's not panic. Let's find a way to pivot and solve a problem. And the longer I do this, the more that's really what it's about. It's about just not stopping, finding solutions to the problems and executing on that. And then if you can do that, then you'll end up, you know, time is one of those things that time's going to go by no matter what. But what are you doing with your time? So a friend of mine says time is money, and if you got a lot of time, you ain't got no money. It's one of the funniest things you ever said to me.
It's so funny. It's like it's going back to what you just mentioned. It's opportunities disguised as distractions.
Okay,
and
I like that.
Opportunities that come aren't always keeping you on path. Like spiritually, I believe that a lot of opportunities are brought forth in an evil way to keep you from realizing what you're supposed to be on mission for. And opportunities that seem good, but they seem good because they satisfy an earthly desire, but keep you further away from what that true mission is. And long term, if you can say no to what you want now to say yes for what you want most, you're gonna win big at the end of the day.
It's the infinite game. Like that's one of my favorite books, and I've always said that we're playing the long game, you know, like, I mean, even Rich did a series on the long game, but you can't live life for that instant gratification. Totally. Like if you do, it's going to bite you, you know, real fast. Like you have to, I call it delayed gratification. Like you have to give up what you want at that moment for a greater of what you really want later on. So, yeah.
I love it, man.